Top 8 Historical Unsolved Mysteries. Since the world began, we have been surrounded by mysteries. Some are solved by science, but others remain unexplained and might stay unsolved forever. Some are as ancient as humanity, but our fascination with them keeps them timeless. Here are 10 such historical unsolved mysteries, to both entertain you and make you wonder. 8. The fate of Hitler's stolen wealth. This is supposedly the greatest and biggest cache ever, an unimaginable hoard of looted gold bars, jewelry, and foreign currency, with an estimated value of $4 billion. These stolen riches disappeared in the blink of an eye from the vaults of the German Reichsbank. In the decades after World War II, troves of looted valuables were found in Portugal, Switzerland, Turkey, Spain, and Sweden, but they hardly compare in value to Hitler's supposed hoard. Groups all over the world are still hunting for his treasure, but even after all these years, the question remains, where is the gold of Hitler? The only sure thing is that the mystery of the treasure remains unsolved, with all its rumors, speculations, and myths still entwined around it. One of the most popular beliefs is that Hitler himself buried it in a secret location somewhere in Deutsch-Neutorf, Germany. Some treasure hunters believe that the plunder is lying at the bottom of Lake Toplitz in Austria, while others suggest that it's stashed in banks around the world. The only certain thing is that, when there's nothing but speculation about the location of a $4 billion treasure, it grows into a legend. Hitler was leader of the Third Reich in Nazi Germany and orchestrated the execution of more than 6 million Jews during the Holocaust. His aggressive foreign policy is believed to be the primary cause of the Second World War. He invaded Poland in September 1939, and it led to France and England declaring war. But he was finally defeated by the Allies in 1945, following which he ended his life. Hitler was a dictator, and his radical ideology sought to create an Aryan race of superior beings, and he was responsible for mass genocide in his concentration camps. He killed himself on April 30, 1945 to avoid capture, after giving his deputies strict instructions on what to do with his body so it wouldn't be found and humiliated by his enemies. And he also told them what he wanted done with his various assets, some of which still remains a mystery. Hitler was a tax dodger who hid a vast fortune across several Swiss bank accounts, historians have discovered. Documents have emerged showing the dictator amassed hundreds of millions of pounds in today's money, which he concealed from the German people. It appeared to vanish completely after his death, along with his substantial art collection. But historians have now managed to trace the money through tax documents and bank statements. They believe he was worth around 1.1 billion Reichsmarks, the equivalent of £3.6 billion today. During his lifetime, the Nazi leader insisted his public speeches only made him a small amount of money and that he did not even have a bank account. He refused to pay taxes, dodging £1.75 million before passing a law that made him exempt. The book he wrote in prison, Mein Kampf, generated 1 million Reichsmarks per year after Hitler decreed that a copy be given to every married couple, paid for by the government. Experts also claim the dictator wrote the secret will on the morning of his death, hoping to trick the German people into believing his humble claims. In it he dedicated 5 pages to a political diatribe against the Jews and just 3 to his personal will. He presented himself as almost penniless, writing, "What I own belongs, as so far as it is of any value at all, to the party." There was no further mention of his wealth, only that his relatives should be given enough to sustain a simple middle-class life. It was to be administered by Hitler's private secretary and fellow Nazi, Martin Bormann, who was witness to the will and named as Hitler's sole executive. However, Bormann was shot dead not long after Hitler committed suicide. The will was intercepted by Allied forces as a suspected Nazi tried to smuggle it out of the country, hidden in the shoulder pad of his jacket. Historian Dr. Chris Wetton said, "He loved money. He just wasn't prepared to do much for it." The Nazi leader also copyrighted his image, meaning he even earned royalties every time a postage stamp with his face on it was sold. Herman Rotherman, a retired British intelligence officer, was among those to discover and translate the will. He said, "We were absolutely shocked by what we found. I think the private will was also for consumption by the German people. He wanted to show in his private will he had very little. I always felt he thought about it very, very clearly. He wanted to show the people he had no benefits, that his life was purely devoted entirely to the wealth of the German people." 7. The disappearance of the USS Cyclops. The USS Cyclops was a United States collier ship that was commissioned during World War I. She was launched on May 7, 1910 and was commissioned on May 1, 1917. Lieutenant Commander G.W. Worley was placed in command of the ship. Her first journey during her wartime service was a trip to Street-Nazaire, France in June of 1917. She returned to the east coast of the United States the following month. She operated there until January of 1918, save for a short trip to Nova Scotia. The USS Cyclops was assigned to the Naval Overseas Transportation Service on January 9, 1917. She was then sent to Brazil to aid in the refueling of British ships there. The ship left Brazil on February 16, 1918. On March 3 and 4, she was known to be in the Barbados. This was the last that was ever seen or heard of the USS Cyclops. There was no distress call. No debris, wreckage or any evidence of the ship's demise was ever found. There were 306 passengers and crewmen aboard the ship at the time. They are presumed dead and most assuredly are so by now. The area that the USS Cyclops disappeared in is the infamous Bermuda Triangle. The USS Cyclops is only one of many ships that have reportedly gone missing in the area. Other issues have been reported in the Bermuda Triangle, including the malfunctioning of navigational equipment. Of course, some people believe that there is alien activity or other paranormal phenomena occurring in the area. However, that stretch of ocean is known for its sometimes unpredictable weather conditions and turbulent waters. A lot of what occurs there may easily be attributed to nature. At the time that the USS Cyclops disappeared, it was the largest collier in the United States Navy's fleet. It had a cargo holding capacity of more than 10,000 tons. Something rather destructive would have to have happened for a ship of that size to vanish so rapidly that a distress call couldn't be made. It was originally thought, by some, that an enemy ship must have torpedoed the USS Cyclops. However, there is no German record of an attack on that ship. Other possible causes of the USS Cyclops' disappearance include rogue waves, gas buildup and other natural weather phenomena. Rogue waves are not common, but they have been known to take ships rather quickly. Methane gas pockets under the surface can change the density of the water. It is thought that if a ship came across one of these pockets as it was bursting, it would cause the ship to be unable to float and the ship would sink. It is known that this is possible. However, it has never been proven to have happened. It is obviously difficult to document because the ships would simply disappear without a trace, as the USS Cyclops did. It may never be known what happened to the USS Cyclops and the people on board. There is no way of knowing what her location was when she vanished. Therefore, there is no logical way to search for the wreckage. Unless a part of the ship or its contents are found, there is no way of pinpointing that location either. So, for now, we're left to wonder what could have taken such a large ship so quickly. Or, we could ponder how many aliens it would take to build a device that causes large ships to disappear in one area of the ocean. 6. Locating the remains of Christopher Columbus. The accepted story of Christopher Columbus goes something like this. He was born to a Genoese weaver, wool merchant and cheese seller, but went to sea at an early age. After a long career sailing and trading in the Mediterranean, he made his famous proposal to King Ferdinand of Aragon and Queen Isabella of Castile, to reach Asia by sailing west across the North Atlantic. After 4 voyages to the New World and a brief imprisonment, he retired to a monastery in Spain, where he penned an autobiography and died. That's the accepted story of Columbus. But, historians reviewing the available source materials for Columbus' life, His autobiography, a biography written by his son, various letters and book notations written by Columbus, stories told by contemporaries and past historical research, have encountered problems, including gaps in information and statements that seem to conflict with the accepted narrative, etc. Of course, the biggest problem is simply time. At 500+ years of age, Columbus' story is hard to check. Some source materials are known, or are suspected to be, copies, or even forgeries, of older materials. Obviously, anyone who knew the famous mariner in life is long dead. So, here is a list of Christopher Columbus myths, in chronological order, including the mysteries and misunderstandings surrounding Columbus' life and death. He may not have been Italian. The story of the birth of Columbus to the family of a Genoese wool merchant was only established by an Italian researcher in the late 19th century. He located birth records from 1450 or 1451 indicating the birth to the wool merchant of a son named Cristoforo Colombo. But, there is no direct evidence to connect the historic Columbus with this infant. Further, Columbus always referred to his last name as Colon, a name that is Catalan Spanish. So, it is possible that Columbus was a Catalan who posed as Genovese. He may have started out as an enemy of King Ferdinand. Modern Spain was created by Ferdinand de Aragon out of a group of small, warring nations. In the 1470s, a coalition of wealthy, noble merchants in Catalonia, including the Colon family, waged war against Ferdinand's proposed union. They ultimately were forced to accept Aragonese control. Young Cristobal Colon may have adopted the Italian name, Cristoforo Colombo, to escape identification as a former enemy of the crown. Columbus was not the first to discover America. It used to be pretty well established that Columbus was the first Old Worlder to discover America. Historians no longer consider this to be true. The Norse, from Greenland and Iceland, explored the coast of Labrador, in Canada, just prior to the year 1000 AD. Pictish, Irish and Welsh explorers possibly reached North America before the Norse. A Danish expedition reached Greenland about the century before Columbus, and Basque whale hunters and Bristol fishing fleets were in Arctic Canadian waters about the same time as Columbus' voyages. In the Pacific, a Japanese people settled in Peru during ancient times, and Chinese and Polynesian voyagers reached the coasts of the Americas during the Middle Ages. In all cases, they made confirmed or presumed contact with indigenous peoples who had long called the Americas home and who were not waiting to be discovered. People in Columbus' time did not believe that the world was flat. Scientists, sailors and educated people believed since ancient times that the earth was round. The idea that Columbus proved to the scholars of his day that the earth was round, and not flat, was popularized by American novelist Washington Irving, he of Rip Van Winkle and Headless Horseman fame, in 1828. The real historical dispute between Columbus and Ferdinand's geographers was over the size of the earth. The geographers thought that the shores of Asia were much farther away than Columbus' estimates. We now know that the geographers were right and Columbus was wrong. But, no one in the Spanish court in 1492 suspected that a whole new world lay between Columbus and his dream of Asian wealth. His remains may be in several places. After Columbus' death in Valladolid, Spain in 1506, his remains were moved to a monastery near Seville in 1509. Then, in 1537, his daughter-in-law had his remains removed to a church in Hispaniola, modern Dominican Republic. In 1795, when Spain ceded Hispaniola to France, Spanish authorities supposedly removed at least a portion of the remains to Havana, Cuba. However, in 1898, during the Spanish-American War, the remains were moved again, this time back to Seville. This created a confusing situation, with all of these locations claiming to hold at least some of Columbus' remains. A 2006 study of the Seville remains seems to indicate that these bones belong to Columbus. But, this does not rule out the other candidates having some of his remains, as well. Whatever the truth of Columbus' life and death, his voyages marked a new stage in world history. For better or worse, Our modern world is inconceivable without the achievements of Christopher Columbus. 5. Secrets of the Facetoes disk. In 1908, an Italian archaeologist ventured into the ruins of Facetoes, an ancient Minoan palace on the south coast of Crete. In an underground temple depository, among burnt bones, dust, and ashes, he found a remarkably intact golden-hued disk. The discovery is known as one of the most famous mysteries in archaeology, the Facetoes disk. The Facetoes, or Facetoes, disk is a large, umber-colored, fired clay plate, about 15 centimeters in diameter and 1 centimeter thick. Both sides of the disk are covered with a spiral of strange stamped symbols, circling clockwise towards the disk's center. It's presumed the 45 unique symbols were made by pressing hieroglyphic seals into the damp, soft clay disk. Archaeologist Luigi Pernier found the disk in a basement room under the palace complex during excavation. The site is to have suffered collapse due to earthquake or volcanic eruption. Other artifacts, such as the Archelicorex, have been discovered elsewhere in Crete which sport similar symbols, thought to be linear array, an undeciphered writing system used in ancient Greece. Intercrete writes of the ancient city, Facetoes was one of the most important centers of Minoan civilization, and the most wealthy and powerful city in southern Crete. It was inhabited from the Neolithic period until the foundation and development of the Minoan palaces in the 15th century BC. According to mythology, Facetoes was the seat of King Rhadamanthus, brother of King Minos. It was also the city that gave birth to the great wise man and soothsayer Epaminondas, one of the 7 wise men of the ancient world. To this day, researchers debate the purpose of the mysterious disk, what the coded symbols mean, and even where it was created. The most curious aspect of the disks is the hieroglyphics spiraled on both sides. The symbols are pictograms, portraying images including a man walking, a tattooed head, a helmet, an arrow, manacles, cats, eagles, and more. Both Sir Arthur Evans, discoverer of the Minoan capital Knossos in 1900, and Luigi Pernier attempted to translate the disks but were unsuccessful. Since that time no fewer than 26 notable attempts have been made to decipher the code. It is presumed that the writing is linear array, a script unconnected to any known language, but some scholars suggest it is syllabic writing related to various languages, such as Hittite, Homeric Greek, Indo-European or a Semitic language. WM Magazine writes in an article that a persuasive translation of the Facetoes disk by Petr Kovar has revealed the writing to be Proto-Slavic. There has never been an official agreement to a final translation. Interpretations as to the significance of the symbols include the disk being an ancient prayer, a game board, an astronomical document, a document from Atlantis, an adventure story, a description of the mythical labyrinth, initiation rites for young women, or a solar calendar. Researchers debate whether the symbols should be read from the center of the disk spiraling outwards, or vice versa. They also are not decided as to whether, once the symbols are transcribed into text, that it should be read right to left, or left to right. Unfortunately, attempts at deciphering will likely remain unsuccessful as it is thought by experts that there is not enough context available to make a valid analysis until more examples of the symbols are found. Experts generally accept the disk as authentic, but some scholars have suggested the artifact may be a complex hoax or forgery. Excavation records made by Pernier at the time were thorough, but no definite manufacturing timeline has been established through forensic geochronology tests. As such, theories on dating range from 1700 BC to 1400 BC, and more specifically in Middle or Late Minoan times. Some wonder if Luigi Pernier simply created the disk himself, but discovery of other artifacts with the linear symbols suggest otherwise. In addition, creating a forgery this enduring would be an audacious and difficult fraud to pull off, fooling experts and archaeologists for more than a century. 4. Genghis Khan's final resting place. The death of Genghis Khan, the emperor who united the tribes of Mongolia and led them to create the largest empire in the world, was shrouded in secrecy the moment he died on August 18, 1227. But where is he buried? The secret tomb of Genghis Khan continues to be mystery in 21st century. Legends and mysteries of Genghis Khan's tomb. Legend states that when Genghis Khan's mortal remains were brought back to Mongolia, the slaves who built his tomb were massacred by soldiers to protect the site. To ensure the complete secrecy of this site, these same soldiers were later killed as well. In addition to Genghis Khan's tomb being a mystery, there is no documentation about how he died. The circumstances surrounding his death have ranged from injuries suffered from falling off a horse, to pneumonia and injuries suffered during intercourse with the Tangut princess who placed pliers in her vagina when she was taken as war booty. Genghis Khan asked to be buried following Mongol customs, that is, without markings. Mongols during that era would either leave the body in the open field to be devoured by animals, or tied to the back of a horse and sent into the vast plains of Mongolia. But the talk of a secret tomb of Genghis Khan has persisted, and the possibilities of what spoils may be enclosed in the tomb have led many treasure hunters and historians to seek it out. Now that the Soviet Union has fallen and China is slowly opening its door to the Western world, Mongolia is much more accessible to researchers than ever before. Possible places for the tomb of Genghis Khan. There are a few places that seem the likely locations of the secret tomb. One is Krum Wall site, which is 200 miles from the capital and near his birthplace. The other is near the Anand and Karelen rivers and the Birkenkelden mountain. This was one of his favorite places to be, and he would go there often when he needed retreat. Unfortunately, many places in Mongolia carry the title of Birken, and finding the original one in question has proved most difficult. Finding the secret tomb of Genghis Khan could shed light on one of the most powerful leaders known to history. However, it may also lead to the discovery of various other important tombs. Emperors of the Yuan dynasty, 1279 to 1368, which include Kublai Khan, requested to be buried at this same secret location. 3. Pinpointing the Star of Bethlehem. For Christians, the appearance of the Star of Bethlehem is a faith-based event, and no further explanation is required. But for scientists and non-Christians, many questions remain. For nearly 2,000 years, the bright star has been a mystery. Was it a miracle as the Christian religion teaches, a natural phenomenon, or maybe an alien spacecraft? St. John Chrysostom even suggested that it was not a star, but some unseen force that took this form. It's an enduring mystery, and a source of equal wonder to scientists and Christians alike. The phenomenon has been the object of intense study for researchers, astronomers, historians, and archaeologists since antiquity. Modern scholars sometimes suggest that it was an unidentified flying object because, according to scripture, it was visible constantly day and night and did not follow a course from east to west like other stars do. Some British researchers propose that the Star of Bethlehem was a bright nova, like the one described by the Chinese in the spring of 5 BC. The great German astronomer Johannes Kepler argued that it was the conjunction of two planets forming a temporary new star, an origin of antiquity. 185-254 AD claimed that it was a bright comet, as did the astronomer A. Stenzel in 1913. But an Australian astronomer believes he has answered the riddle of the Bethlehem star, even narrowing down the date of Jesus' birth to a day. The guiding star that led the three wise men, or magi, to the birthplace of Jesus Christ is one of the most lasting symbols of biblical mythology. News editor of Sky and Space magazine Dave Rink says complex charting software has allowed astronomers to map the night sky as it would have appeared more than 2,000 years ago and has revealed a spectacular astronomical event at the time of Jesus' birth. It's like a digital map where we can move forward in time as well as backwards, Mr. Rink explained. Generally accepted research has places the nativity to somewhere between 3 BC and 1 AD. Using the Bible book of Matthew as a reference point, Mr. Rink pinpointed the planetary conjunction to an exact date and 2 BC. Similar to the planetary alignment of the smiley face witnessed across the western sky last week, He said a beacon of light would have been visible across the eastern dawn sky as Venus and Jupiter moved across the constellation of Leo on June 17, 2 BC. The conjunction of the planets was so close, he said the planets would have appeared as one bright star even with the naked eye. "It's called a star but it's really a planet," Mr. Rink said. "They could easily have mistaken it for one bright star. Astronomy is such a precise science, we can plot exactly where the planets were. It certainly seems this is the fabled Christmas star." Theories of such a conjunction have competed with speculation the star was caused by a supernova, an exploding star, or even a comet. By narrowing the date down, Mr. Rink said the technology has provided the most compelling explanation yet. Asked why the mystery held such significance, Mr. Rink said the story of the Christmas star is of particular emotional significance. "It cuts to the heart of what it means to be human beings," he said. "Often when we mix science with religion in this kind of forum, it can upset people. In this case, I think this could serve to reinforce people's faith." And no satisfactory scientific account has been provided to this day, and the mysterious star remains unexplained. 2. The gods of Olympus could have. Is it possible that intelligent life forms visited Earth thousands of years ago, bringing with them technology that drastically affected the course of history and human evolution? If so, would people regard them as gods? According to a few heretic and alternative historians and scientists, this is exactly what happened. We modern humans, according to Hesiod, belong to the fifth faction created by Zeus, the Iron Race, a mixture of good and evil, says Swiss author Erich von Däniken. According to his book Odyssey of the Gods, the ancient Greek gods were in fact extraterrestrial beings with superior intelligence who visited Earth, bringing with them their advanced technology. They were not mythological creatures, but actual space aliens. Of course, none of these theories can be proven historically accurate, but as Van Däniken points out to his doubters, neither can Jesus' divinity. 1. The truth behind Bimini Road. Off the coast of Bimini lies an ancient stone formation submerged beneath crystal blue waters. The mysterious path makes many wonder if it is remnants of the mythical lost land of Atlantis. Researchers, geologists, archaeologists, and scientists alike have visited and studied the huge, flat stones off the coast of Bimini, known as the Bimini Road. They have tried for years to discern whether the limestone blocks are a natural phenomenon, or evidence of an ancient lost civilization. Bimini is an island in the Bahamas, part of a chain of islands 50 miles east of Miami, Florida. A mere 20 feet down in the blue waters off the coast, a stone path can be found, large, flat rocks cut at right angles, seemingly set purposefully in straight lines. This impressive formation stretches half a mile along, with a pronounced hook at one end. The stones can measure up to 13 feet, 4 meters, across. According to Unsolved Mysteries in the World, the origin and meaning of Bimini are unknown. However, the name appears in the ancient Egyptian language in Bimini, which means homage to the soul, Ba, of minutes. Minutes was the Egyptians' divine protector of travelers on far-off journeys, a particularly appropriate god to be worshipped at distant Bimini, if indeed the island had been visited by voyagers from the Nile Valley. In 1968, subsea archaeologist Joseph Mason Valentine and his diving party encountered the paved road, now called the Bimini Road or Bimini Wall. After their initial discovery, the site was visited often by innumerable divers, researchers and scientists, further revealing the existence of 2 additional linear features laying nearly parallel to the enigmatic path. Unexplained Mysteries writes of the connection between the discovery and American mysticist Edgar Cayce, who was said to predict future events during trances. Another curious element of this mystery is a prediction made in 1938 by Edgar Cayce. A portion of the temples may yet be discovered under the slime of ages and sea water near Bimini. Expected in 68 or 69, not so far away. The Bimini Road was located in 1968, some propose as a fulfillment of the prediction that the history of Atlantis would be revealed to the world. Ancient Greek philosopher and mathematician Plato was first to write of Atlantis. His records of a cursed island out of favor with the gods is referred to as a parable, warning that hubris and the abuse of power may be the undoing of a civilization. But what if the story is more than a teaching tool? What if there truly existed an advanced ancient civilization which was lost to the seas and wiped from our history? Since Plato's tale of Atlantis, many have searched for the doomed city's whereabouts. The existence of a buried Atlantis is possible, and some would insist likely, as throughout history people and civilizations around the world have suffered terrible cataclysms of tsunamis, volcanic explosions, earthquakes and other disasters, and disappeared from the pages of history until rediscovered centuries later. Could Atlantis have suffered a similar fate? Skeptics think not, and dismiss the connection between the Bimini Road and Atlantis. Consensus among conventional geologists who drilled core samples of the Bimini rocks is that it's a natural phenomenon. They explain that the beak rock has been weathered by erosion, the tides scouring and eroding lines and edges into the limestone along natural joints, as it does so in other locations around the globe. Further, they suggest that any tool marks found on site are not evidence of ancient stoneworking, but instead the result of tourists and investigators chipping away at the rocks for souvenirs or research. Not all have been satisfied with the mainstream theories, and expeditions have been mounted to solve the riddle of the Bimini Road. Sci-Fi Channel did an investigation and documentary on the underwater formation in 2006. Wikipedia notes that quest for Atlantis, startling new secrets focused on the legend of Atlantis, highlighting the Bimini Road. A team of researchers dived at Bimini Bay, and reported discovering an entire second layer of square-cut rocks with similar dimensions beneath the stones. This suggested to the researchers that the road may have been part of a larger wall or water dock,